Despite being a prequel series that leads up to Rogue One, Andor still managed to introduce a ton of new mysterious stuff in the Star Wars universe, and perhaps the most important one of those is the rebel leader Luthen Rael, as no one really knows what his deal is. Could he have a secret connection to Palpatine though? Well, in today's video, we're gonna try to uncover Luthen's mystery and more, so keep watching. First off, Luthen might have a secret Palpatine connection. The rebel leader is easily one of the more intriguing characters in Andor, as he shows up in places at his own whim, commands people to do his bidding, and then leaves in his Kyber-powered spaceship. And even though he's done a great job of staying under the radar and avoiding the Empire, there's gotta be more to him, cause there's no way someone can pull off stuff like that and get away, right? Seriously, from him setting up rebel networks all across the galaxy to escaping a Cantwell-class arrestor cruiser's tractor beam, this guy is one of, if not the person to catch for the Empire. Also, yeah, we get the whole thing about how the Imperial forces are way too overconfident to pay heed to that sort of stuff, but come on, are you telling us that those ISB officers scrambling around couldn't catch this old dude living right under their noses? Well, maybe. Still, the fact that he can pull so many strings while also remaining anonymous means there's gotta be an extra layer to his disguise that we haven't seen yet. So here's a crazy idea. What if he was actually linked to Palpatine? No, seriously, just hear us out for a second. Not only is his double life tactic super risky, but he's also just way too comfortable flying around and interacting with people, almost as if he's got some friends in very, very high places. Up next, Luthen doesn't run a regular antique shop. Just think about it. The guy runs a fully fledged antique shop on Coruscant right under the Empire's nose, but okay, that's still acceptable since he's got to maintain that double identity and show he's a part of the planet's elite. Here's where things get interesting though. Luthen is not a regular collector by any stretch of the imagination. He's got stuff from all over the galaxy, stuff that no normal person should have access to. Jedi Temple guard masks, a Sith holocron, a Sith helmet, and Mandalorian armor. These aren't things that are supposed to be lying around in a shop. In fact, we'd go as far as to say that something like a Sith holocron should be one of the hardest things to find in the galaxy. Oh, and just in case you didn't know, a holocron is a sort of a secret flash drive containing super important information about Force users. So, both the Jedi and Sith have their own versions of these little devices. Now the question is, why would the Empire let someone like Luthen have access to this sensitive information? What's more, it's right there, on display to be bought by anyone, including the Jedi. Like, wouldn't Emperor Palpatine wanna, hide that stuff for eternity? Yep, and that's why there has to be some sort of connection between Luthen and Palpatine, cause there's no other way the Emperor's gonna just ignore this sort of stuff under his rule. Coming up, Palpatine could be Luthen's customer. Again, crazy idea, but hear us out for a bit. What if Palpatine isn't oblivious to Luthen's adventures at all? What if he's actually one of the rebel leader's special clients, letting him play the double life in exchange for something far more valuable: rare Sith artifacts? Now, you may question if these artifacts are worth all the havoc Luthen's causing, but again, Palpatine is a mysterious guy who's ready to do anything to gain as much power as he can. And that obviously also includes gathering up ancient Sith knowledge. Besides, who knows, maybe this is how he learned how to resurrect himself in the sequel trilogy too. Could be a pretty cool connection, right? Why Luthen of all people though? Well, turns out the old guy just has some insane knowledge about ancient artifacts and is really good at finding that stuff. So it makes perfect sense for Palpatine to hire him and ask him to collect these pieces of Sith wisdom. Not to mention, since most normal people don't know that the Emperor is a Sith Lord, it makes sense for him to hire Luthen to do his bidding. Plus, the fact that these artifacts are present in the back of his shop rather than the usual stuff out in front means that they're being held for a special client. Lastly, Luthen knows a lot about the Empire. Now, the rebel leader's connection with Palpatine also explains why he knows so much about the Empire's inner workings. From their secret operations to all the weaknesses, it's almost as if he's conversing with someone very high up the order. What's more, he always seems to get away at the right moments, meaning he knows about stuff before it happens. Of course, you could argue whether he's fooling Palpatine into telling him these secrets, or if this is some sort of mutually beneficial relationship. The point remains that Luthen isn't afraid to operate in plain sight, which isn't something that can be said for other rebel leaders like Mon Mothma. Plus, he also knows just how dangerous the Empire can get, which makes his approach a lot more cutthroat, so much so that he's willing to sacrifice people to retain the rebellion's secrecy. But of course, all this is just speculation, and we'll have to wait until Season 2 for Luthen's big reveal. Moving on to 5 things that Andor Season 2 needs to do. Starting with number 5, continue focusing on character moments. One of the biggest reasons behind Andor's stellar success was its attention to detail when it came to its characters. Like, every single person, whether they were Cassian or a totally different character, felt important. Mon Mothma, for instance, was one of the quote-unquote side plots within Season 1 as she tackled all the issues she faced in her daily life. And while that shouldn't have been that intriguing, especially since most of her scenes are shot at her own home, the show still did an incredible job to maintain her relevance throughout. Seriously, from the emotional turmoil within her to her dealing with an ever-squeezing grip of the Empire, it was arguably one of the best parts about Andor. So heading into Season 2, the creators need to make sure they continue on this trajectory and don't forget what the series is about. Of course, things are gonna be much faster now as we're gonna cover a 4-year time period within 12 episodes. Still, there's plenty of room to focus on these intimate character moments rather than making the show all about the rebellion itself. After all, we've got Rogue One to sort of cater to that side of things too. Now for number 4, a satisfying conclusion to Dedra and Cyril's saga. Dedra Meero and Cyril Karn are 2 of the more intriguing characters within the show, as they're both trying to serve the Empire for 2 very different positions. Of course, Dedra is an ISB officer, while Cyril's, well, no one. That said, the show continues to play with the idea of establishing the sexual tension of sorts between the pair, which honestly just sounds like a tired trope at this point. So for Season 2, Andor needs to make sure it doesn't fall into the same trap that so many other shows do. Yep, we're talking about a potential romance between the fascist duo. Now, we're sure many people would love to see that, but if you think about it, the whole thing would be disingenuous to Dedra's character and her self-dependence. She's not some damsel in distress that needs saving, so we just want to see a more original conclusion to both her and Cyril's stories. Following up at number 3, no Jedi or Sith action. Another reason why Andor is such a breath of fresh air is that it tries to detach itself from the mainline Star Wars franchise. There are no fancy Jedi or Sith lightsaber duels here, and it's a gritty look at the ground realities of these very normal people. And for Season 2, the showrunners need to make sure they continue with that theme. After all, even though Obi-Wan or someone else showing up would be cool and everything, it's also sort of become way too predictable. Not to mention, the absence of Force users within the show highlights the fact that it's not easy to form a rebellion. Like, it's not just about some blonde Jedi hero jumping in with his lightsaber and saving the day. This is real, and people are sacrificing their lives for it. So, more of the same, please. Next up at number 2, Nemik's Manifesto. Now, this one was one of the more low-key parts of the show that was introduced when Cassian is still prepping for the heist with the Rebel Squad, and while the show doesn't pay much heed to Nemik's political theory, when he hands it over to our protagonist at that point, it unfolds in spectacular fashion by the end of the show. It is, hands down, one of the most incredible monologues in the show. Seriously, the way it digs deep into the political theory that underlines the Star Wars universe and sort of describes the tug and pull of good and bad is super well done. Plus, it also kind of explains just how rebellions are formed, which again is integral to the franchise. So we better see more of Nemik's Manifesto in Season 2, or we're gonna riot. Finally at number 1, Cassian's sister. Andor's first season began with Cassian looking for a sister, and while we got some childhood flashbacks after that, that plot almost got sidelined for the rest of the season after that. Sure, Marva told him to stop searching for her, but that was about it. There was no resolution, or even motivation for a protagonist to go on that quest. So for Season 2, we'd like to see that side of the story fleshed out a bit more, because not only will it add more context to Cassian's character, but it'll also flesh out the emotional stakes he's got in this fight. Besides, everyone likes a bit of closure, right? On that note, it's a wrap for this video. What do you think Andor needs to do in Season 2? And is Luthen really connected to Palpatine? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.